You're listening to The Gary Harris Show on Tide 100.9 in Tuscaloosa.
Against the Heat, Kevin Durant with 32 points, and the Clippers beat the 76ers 110-98 as Paul George had 18 points in his first game against his old team.
The Gary Harris Show. UCM host Tider Insider TV. Crimson Tide Kickoff. Play-by-play for Alabama sports and sports director for WVUA 23. It's time for the Gary Harris Show on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Buddy, I tell you what a way to start the show. Welcome to the Gary Harris Show. Brandon Miller, Bama in the NBA, former Crimson Tide star last night, with the buzzer beater against the Pistons off a missed three-point attempt. And Eric Collins, the play-by-play announcer for the Charlotte Hornets, is awesome. I mean, in fact, I need to try to get him on my show. I've been listening to him since Brandon's been in Charlotte, and he is really good. I mean, he brings the enthusiasm. You heard it right there, but he's got, really professional approach and a strong voice. It's not like he's just out there screaming for the sake of screaming, but I really enjoy listening to him. And of course, obviously enjoyed last night, 108-107, Brandon Miller, who's already been battling, some injuries, but boy, he is, he's ready to have a huge year, and this is a much improved basketball team. I mean, they have got the Hornets do a young roster that's full of talent, and LaMelo Ball is back, and his chemistry with Brandon Miller has really been fun. And this is a team that's on the rise now, and we wanted to open the show with Brandon Miller last night at the buzzer. Play that one more time. Brandon Miller wins it. Eric Collins on the call from the Charlotte Hornets television broadcast. Good morning, everybody. Welcome into the Gary Harris Show. Gary Harris, Chase Brumfeld for you, and ready to entertain you for the next couple of hours here on Tide 100.9 FM and 1230 AM WTBC, talking sports and more. It is Thursday, November 7th, 2024. We got a great show on tap. I'm going to run it down for you here in just a second. First, though, I'll tell you this hour of the Gary Harris Show being brought to you, as always, by my good friends at Alabama Credit Union. Discover the heart and soul of our member-owned credit union, empowering our members, enriching our community. Find out more at alabamacu.com. That's alabamacu.com, or get by and see them at one of the many locations around the state of Alabama. Alabama Credit Union, loans for real life. Some rules and restrictions do apply. See if you're eligible for membership. Then join today and feel good about your money. And put a little extra change in your pocket. All right, we'd love to hear from you this morning on the program. As always, the phone number to the Pinnacle Park at North River Hotline is 205-342-9904. That's 205-342-9904. Feel free to give us a call. Our lineup for today, it's the Thursday lineup, which is pretty consistent every week. We like it, with the coach, Ellis Johnson, at 9:30, breaking down SEC football. Then at 10 o'clock, popular guest, D. Orlando Ledbetter, longtime Atlanta Falcons beat writer for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, AJC.com. And at 10:30, Jeff Spiegel, my pal and sports anchor at ABC 3340, host of The Zone, host of the EOG Rap, and many other great programs here with sports in the state of Alabama. So we got a good show on tap. We opened it up with Brandon Miller winning it for the Charlotte Hornets. Also, another former Alabama sports great in the city of Charlotte making news, Bryce Young for the Carolina Panthers. We'll get the start again this weekend over in Munich, Germany, when the Panthers take on the New York Giants. This will be his third straight start, and it looks like, Chase, that after he was benched and Andy Dalton came in and led him to a win, but then Dalton's play, started kind of teetering off a little bit too. And then he was involved with his wife in not a bad automobile accident, but he hurt his hand. And Bryce went back in and has played well. He played pretty well against the Broncos, even though they lost. And then he led them to a win over the Saints this past Sunday. So, I'm thrilled to see him back in that lineup and winning a game. And boy, wouldn't it be nice if he could go back-to-back this Sunday over in Munich, Germany, where they're playing that game between the Giants and the Panthers. So if you're an Alabama fan, you got one of your greatest former quarterbacks and one of your greatest former basketball players there in the city of Charlotte with the Carolina Panthers and the Charlotte Hornets. So it makes following those teams a lot of fun. Also, Alabama basketball playing tomorrow night at home at 7 o'clock against Arkansas State, which is coached, of course, by former Alabama assistant Brian Hodson. And so that'll be fun tomorrow night. The Alabama women play at 2 o'clock on Sunday afternoon against Troy. Alabama football, obviously, in go mode now as they are wrapping up preparations for the game at LSU tomorrow afternoon. They will fly to Baton Rouge and then, of course, wait it out on Saturday with it being a night game and then play Saturday night. Weather-wise, it's not looking like it's going to be too bad. It's going to be muggy. It was muggy this morning, Chase. I woke up, it was already 75 degrees when I went outside this morning. How about that?
I was sweating walking my apartment, and I never sweat like that. So, Lord God, please let it be cold.
Well, that's the deal is there's no relief in the 10-day forecast. It just continues to call for highs in the 80s and lows in the 60s. But Saturday night, there is a chance for evening showers, but it doesn't look it's going to be too bad. But no, if it were a day game, we'd probably be fine. It's just going to be cloudy until the evening. So there could be some rain in Baton Rouge, but temperature-wise, it's going to be really warm again. It's going to be 80 degrees that night for the game. So I take that back. I'm sorry. It's going to be warmer than that. It's going to be 84 for the high and, still in the low 80s at kickoff. So humid, warm, and possibly raining on Saturday night down in Baton Rouge for the Alabama game. And if you're a Crimson Tide fan that's making the trip, keep that in mind. I'm sure most of you will. But that's a game that a lot of Bama fans like to go to, as we've talked about all week. It is a incredible atmosphere. It's a tough place to play, all that, but Alabama absolutely has been dominant in Baton Rouge, winning 2 out of every 3 games that they've ever played down there. The point spread reflects that. Alabama is a 3-point favorite over the Bayou Bengals. The over-under is 58.5. Of course, tomorrow I'll make my SEC point spread predictions. And I was 5-0-1 last week, which is outstanding after but I'm only 500 for the year. So, let's be clear. I'm not tearing it up. But as I've pointed out, it's not like I'm just going around and picking out 2 or 3 games that I like. And I'm picking every SEC game, which if you were doing this for trying to make money off of it, that's not what you would do. You would pick the 2 or 3 games or pick outside the conference. So when you're picking every SEC game, you're picking a game whether you really like it or not. In other words, and I don't bet, but if I'm having to pick a game that even if I were a gambler, I wouldn't bet on, but I'm still picking it because that's what makes it fun. So to be 500 in the SEC at this point in the season is not too bad, but those SEC point spread predictions, I'll make them tomorrow as part of Fridays at the Free. Also, and I'll get it out on social media, we're giving away, let me pull it up because Tom sent me the pictures from T-Town Menswear yesterday as part of our T-Town Menswear T-Town Gallery Bama Trivia Contest. Tomorrow we're giving away a great print by Steve Skipper, Through the Storm, which is from Alabama's national championship 21-0 win over LSU at the Superdome. And it is signed by the artist, Steve Skipper. Beautiful, beautiful print. It features a play of Alabama sacking the quarterback. Remember, the defense was dominant in that game. You see Courtney Upshaw. You see a number of Alabama defenders on the hit. And you can actually see Kirby Smart on the sideline. How about that? along with Bobby Williams, Nick Saban. But this is a beautiful, beautiful print, and it is signed by the artist Steve Skipper. So that'll be our giveaway on Friday in our Bama football trivia contest presented by T-Town Menswear and T-Town Gallery in the University Mall. All right, it's 13 minutes after the hour of 9 o'clock, and we're off and running here on the Gary Harris Show. Wide open for phone calls in the next segment. Also, we will get into the entire SEC football schedule with the coach, Ellis Johnson, at 9:30. Your phone calls, as I said, are welcome, and we've also got DeOrlando Ledbetter and Jeff Spiegel on the docket today as well. So sit back, enjoy some great local sports talk on Tide 100.9 FM and 1230 AM WTBC, your home for Alabama sports. We'll be right back with more of the Gary Harris Show after this.
Here's what's trending on the Tuscaloosa thread.
From the Town Square Media Newsroom, my name's Mary Kay. And President Biden is scheduled to address the nation from the White House later this morning. This will be the president's first remark since President-elect Donald Trump's victory over Vice President Harris. In the 2020 general election, 63% of Alabama voters went to the polls.
The only third-generation chiropractor with over 27 years experience in Tuscaloosa. Call Tidwell Chiropractic at 752-7503.
As much as Innisfree has evolved, it will always be that place to escape and have a good time. Whether it's for a game day weekend, to reminisce on college days, or to create new memories, if you're looking for a good time, there's only one thing to do. Head to the Free at 1925 University Boulevard. And don't forget about the Lucky Lunch Meat and 3 special.
This weekend, Fridays at the Free, every Friday during football season with Tide 100.9 and Innisfree Irish Pub, located at 1925 University Boulevard, downtown.
Since 2011, Billy's Sports Grill, located on Main Avenue in historic downtown Northport, has been serving their legendary signature chicken sandwich, award-winning wings, and handcrafted cocktails. Billy's is also the spot to watch all your favorite sporting events with big screen, high-definition televisions, both dining rooms, at the bar, and outside on the beautiful patio. Come by and say hello to Kim and Lisa, the Billy's Management Dream Team. Billy's, good food, good friends, and good time.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
The weather unseasonably warm today. A mix of sun and clouds. The chance of a few scattered showers through tonight. The high today 81. Tonight's low 65. Tomorrow, partially sunny. Again, the chance of scattered showers. The high at 79. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 74 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
You're listening to The Gary Harris Show.
Goal line in, touchdown, Alabama!
On your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9. And streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, 9:17. Welcome back into the Gary Harris Show. I'm going to get back to Alabama football in just a moment, but the NBA season, as we played the clip of Brandon Miller getting the game winner for the Hornets, is off and running, and there's some interesting early storylines. Last night, the Warriors kind of reworked team with no Klay Thompson, but went into Boston and beat the Celtics. That's a noteworthy win, 118-112. The Warriors are 7-1 and 5-0 away from home. The Celtics fall to 7-2. I don't know if you follow the NBA very closely, but and they've got a good team. There's no doubt about it. But the Cleveland Cavaliers are 9-0. Chase, they are unbeaten.
They have found resurgence from last season. Donovan Mitchell, Spider.
He's a player. There's no doubt about that. And the Lakers are suddenly slumping. They got off to a quick start, but they got blown out in Memphis last night by the Grizz, 131-114. And they are now 4-4 on the season. And I think they've lost, I know they got off that. Let me see how many in a row they've lost here. I'll look it up real quick. It's not that hard to do. Let me find the Lakers. They lost 2 in a row and 4 of their last 5 after a quick start. So they're 4-4. And I don't know. LeBron's doing his thing. I mean, he's 40 years old and playing like he's 20. Last night for the Lakers in that loss to the Grizz, he went for 39 points, 7 rebounds, and 6 assists. You can't do much. You can't do much more than that. And we mentioned the Hornets, an improved team. They're 3-5, which isn't great, but you got to remember where they've been, and they were without Brandon Miller for a few of those games. But they're 3-5, and they're a team that I think has a chance to finish around 500. I really do, and who knows, maybe get a playoff spot, which would be major progress for that team. So, just a few NBA notes to keep an eye on. Now back to Alabama football. I was on a show. I'm on a show Thursdays before my show out of Memphis every week, and they do kind of like a little round table. It's pretty cool, actually, video, the whole bit. But obviously we were talking about Alabama LSU, and one of the questions they gave me was, does it come down to which quarterback plays the best? And it's a good question, and I think oftentimes that's the case in college football. But I certainly think you can make a case in this game that the quarterback that's most effective, his team is going to win the game. And I look at Nussmeier. He's not going to wow you with his athleticism. He's athletic, but he's not obviously Jalen Milroe. And, he's not going to beat you with his legs. He's going to beat you throwing the football and using that very good group of wide receivers that they have. If you give him time to survey the field with those receivers, he's going to pick you apart with surgical precision. He just is. I mean, he's that good a thrower. He's a guy that can rattle off 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, 11, 12 completions in a row against you. You got to get pressure on him, in my opinion. You got to disrupt him. And another thing that you can't do is suddenly allow the LSU running game, which has been basically dormant all year, to start having some success. So defensively, you got to keep that running game from getting going and make them one-dimensional and make Nussmeier have to beat you with his arm and then be able to apply some pressure to him, get to him, affect him. In that second half against Texas A&M, he made some uncharacteristic mistakes, threw 3 interceptions, and forced some balls. Pressure bursts pipes, and pressure also gives quarterback fits. Quarterbacks do not like pressure. On the other side for Alabama, Milroe, I think, just needs to play solid. He doesn't need to do anything spectacular for Alabama to win this game. I mean, I think the game plan will be similar to what we saw with Missouri. I think they're going to try to establish the running game with the running backs. Obviously, Jalen can run. He's going to run some. But I think they'd like to get those running backs going, win the line of scrimmage. Off of that, throw play action, and get him going in the passing game with some rhythm. And if the big plays are downfield, take them. But don't try to be a all-or-nothing type of offense. Control the football. They did a good job of that against Missouri. Use the running game. Work in some completions. And if you get a chance to take a big shot down the field, take it. But don't feel like, we got to hit a bunch of big plays to win the game. I don't think you do. So, yeah, I think it's fair to say that whichever team offensively is the most efficient with their quarterback managing the game and taking the game plan and playing it out on the field, I think that team will win the game. I think that's fair. That's a fair question, and I do think it's fair to say whichever quarterback plays best, I think that team will win the game. Now, again, when I say plays the best, I'm not saying that Jalen Milroe has to rush for 100 yards and throw for 300. I'm not saying that. What I think he has to do is I think he has to manage the offense, take the shots when they're there, run the football efficiently, but I don't think he has to do what he did in the Georgia game. Now, listen, if it's there to run it for 40, 50-yard touchdown, certainly he's going to do it. But I don't think he has to do it like that. I just think he has to be efficient and manage the offense and execute the game plan. And I think Alabama will win this game. If he plays poorly, and I thought he did not play well at Tennessee, if he plays a poor game, then it's going to be hard for Alabama to win the game. But that's always the case. Quarterbacks need to play well for their teams to win. That's just the reality of it. But I don't want to see Nussmeier get into a rhythm, because when he's throwing on time and Lacey and Anderson and those guys are catching the ball and running after the catch, that's a scary offense now. They can do some things. So the Alabama defense has got to answer the call as well. And it's good that they're coming off a dominant performance. Now, Missouri was handcuffed by Brady Cook not being 100% and then leaving the game. Noel, their leading running back, wasn't in the game. But still, Alabama shut them out. The defensive line, I thought, played its best game. And the defensive line will need to play well in this game as well. Now, the first availability report was released last night by the Southeastern Conference. And when you look at it, Alabama appears to have a huge advantage in regard to the injury situation. I thought I posted that on my Facebook page last night. Don't tell me I posted it on my personal page, because I didn't mean to. I meant to put it on my professional page. But that's what I did. I put it on my personal page. The injury report, availability report, and I put it on my wrong page. I was busy last night. Only Keon Sabb and Cole Adams are listed as out for Alabama. LSU, meanwhile, has a lot of players out in this game. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 players listed as out. 2 more is questionable, and 1 more is probable. So on paper, Alabama has a big advantage there in regard to the injury situation. Let me put that out on my VUA, Gary Harris VUA page. I meant to put it out there last night. But it's a situation where, regardless of LSU being banged up, they're going to be ready to go. Alabama has a great track record in that stadium. At the same time, it is a tough place to play. It is Kalen DeBoer's first time down there. He's trying to win an SEC road game for the first time. If Alabama loses that game, he goes to 0-3 on the road in the SEC. Alabama's basically eliminated from the college football playoff. So there's a lot on the line on Saturday night down on the Bayou. All right, it is 9:28. We're going to take a timeout and come back with Ellis Johnson. Before we do, I'm going to remind you the YMCA of Tuscaloosa is ready for you when you're ready for the Y. I love being a member there. I've been a member for over 20 years. I would encourage you to get by and check it out if you're not already a member. Let them show you what they can do for you at the Y with a great facility, terrific personal training, fitness classes, silver sneakers program for seniors, daycare for children, and more. That's the YMCA of Tuscaloosa, 2300 13th Street downtown. We're back with the coach, Ellis Johnson, next, right here on the Gary Harris Show.
Tuscaloosa's Old Colony Golf Course is an 18-hole championship layout designed by 1976 U.S. Open champion Jerry Pate. Director of Golf John Gray and fitting specialist Bob Montgomery are PGA certified. Mike Shivitz is the head professional and director of the Tuscaloosa Junior Golf Program. Call today to secure a tee time at the
Class. Vos está pronto.
Estamos prontos.
However you learn, Babbel makes it easy. Try Babbel for free at Babbel.com. Babbel.com.
Life doesn't wait for when your finances are in perfect order. It just happens. But no matter what surprises come your way, Alabama Credit Union will be here to help make it affordable with great personal loans, mortgages, and auto loans. They offer an easy application process and fast decisions so you can stay focused on feeling good about whatever life brings your way. Alabama Credit Union will be here to help make it affordable with great personal loans, mortgages.
Download the free Upside app and use promo code YEAR for a 25 cents per gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code YEAR for a 25 cents per gallon bonus.
Want to know what's going on with the Crimson Tide? Download the Tide 100.9 app today.
Johnson to go around the SEC and we do it every Thursday here on the program. Good morning, Coach. How are you?
Good morning, Gary. Doing fine.
Great. Let's dive in. We'll look back at a couple of games before we move ahead. Let's start with the South Carolina-Texas A&M game, and you kind of had an inkling on this one, but South Carolina is a pretty good football team, and they're probably kicking themselves over a couple of games they let get away, but they didn't let that one get away Saturday night. Really dominant second half. They were able to slow down Texas A&M, and then offensively, they were really efficient. Sellers played great, and they got a 44-20 win over a team that was previously unbeaten in the SEC.
Yeah, I think it was sort of a little bit of a hint coming in. When you start mixing quarterbacks back and forth over the course of a season, it is hard for that not to jump up and bite you at some point in time, and I think that's what got A&M. This was the fourth time. They started with Wegman, they went to the other kid, they went back to Wegman, and now they go back to the other kid. And I think South Carolina probably could have beaten them whichever started. The way they played, he certainly would have beaten a lot of good teams that night. But when you put Reed in and he cannot throw the ball and you don't respect the throwing game, that gave them the ability to slow down that rushing game, which is basically what A&M's been living off of. But you mentioned it also. Sellers played really well for a young player. He's been making some unbelievable plays during the season, but he would also give them a couple of plays a game that would be almost backbreakers they couldn't overcome. He didn't turn the ball over and, played, like you said, played very efficiently. So it was good enough for them to beat a good Texas A&M team.
And now the challenge for South Carolina is very similar to the challenge that A&M had coming off the win over LSU and going on the road, in that now South Carolina has to go to Nashville. And I know they got a long winning streak. I think it's 15 in a row over the Commodores, but, of course, Alabama hadn't lost to them in 40 years and got beat. So that won't be a cup of tea. This Vanderbilt team believes in Diego Pavia. They believe that they can win games, and they've been doing it. So the challenge now for the Gamecocks is to come off a huge win and go on the road and start trying to piggyback some wins. So how big a challenge will that be for the Gamecocks on Saturday?
Well, it's a challenge. They can take care of their own business. They'll win the ball game, but they have been very inconsistent this year. You mentioned they could kick themselves to two earlier losses they had a shot at. They also played very poorly against a 1AA team and a group of five team and got by those two. So they've not been consistent this year. Most of that has been the young quarterback, and he really is showing some signs of maturity. So I think unless they go up there and turn the ball over and make a bunch of mistakes, which Vanderbilt, that's their style of winning, I think they'll come away with a win. But they do need to come back down and get ready for a good, tough opponent.
Speaking of Vanderbilt, they won at Auburn in a game where they didn't play great, and Pavia was a little dinged going into the game. He didn't have one of his better games, but they toughed it out and not only won, but won by 2 scores, 17-7 late in the game. They were able to go on a 9-minute drive and bleed the clock. This is again, we keep talking about Vanderbilt in the way they have transformed themselves with the transfers and Pavia at quarterback and Jerry Kill coming in to help out Clark Lee. But they're a tough, hard-nosed football team. And you play in a team in Auburn, you got to feel like that Clark Lee just told his team, listen, we know how to win and they don't. And if we just stick to the game plan and just be tough over 60 minutes, we're going to win. And that's what happened. I mean, again, if you're Auburn, you're scratching your head. More on them in a moment. But that was a really big win for Vanderbilt when you consider it's on the road in the SEC.
Yep. Once again, one of their main formulas, both teams ran only 58 snaps. And Vanderbilt knows how to do that and how to win doing that. And other teams they play, when they pull them down from 70 to 58 or 75 to 58 snaps, sometimes it gets them out of whack, and they can't get to set up plays and the other plays they want to run off of a well-run offense, et cetera. So although Auburn's offense was not real good, I mean, this is the first time that somebody just slammed the door on their running game. And so Vanderbilt knows who they are. They know how they win, and they'll have a shot against everybody that plays. So, as you say, it's going to be a challenge for South Carolina, to get back down to earth and play up there at Vanderbilt.
And if you're Auburn, you go into the bye, I guess still just kind of scratching your head. You mentioned the run game. Jarquez Hunter went for nearly 300 against Kentucky, was held to 50 against the Vanderbilt. You mentioned Vanderbilt knowing who they are, and Auburn's the complete opposite. They seem to have no clue who they are. Week to week, it's just, they find a way to lose, and they just don't seem to have anything consistently that they hang their hat on offensively. Defensively, they played really well in the game. But, you score 7 points, it's going to be hard to win.
The same thing. Their defense has played pretty well all year long, but they'll have a drive at the end of the game where they can't shut the door, and they played well for the previous 50 minutes. That's just hard to understand that. But if you look at what they held Vanderbilt to on offense, and then you say, quarterback Thorne was 20 of 29 and 239 yards and didn't throw a pick. You say, Auburn must have won. Well, they couldn't run the football. And why, I don't know, but I think you just got to give Vanderbilt credit. They knew what they had to do to come in and win that game, and the turnovers weren't a big deal, but Auburn was -1 in that category too. So Vanderbilt played that game to their formula and came out of a SEC road game with a win.
And for Auburn, you get to bye, but it is what it is. You're 3-6, so the math is pretty simple. You've got to beat Monroe, A&M, and Alabama to get bowl eligible and avoid a fourth straight losing season. You've got some history with that program. I mean, that's just not something that top programs to have, one losing season, 2 losing seasons. But if they have 4 straight losing seasons, that's embarrassing, Coach, regardless of why. I mean, we're not talking about competing for a championship. We're talking about 4 years in a row that you can't even post a winning record.
Yeah, this is the program that's got national championships, and played in national championships, and fights at the top of the SEC year in, year out. Now, all of a sudden, with all these coaching changes and upheavals and turning this over and turning that over, there's just no consistency. So I don't know. I know Coach Freeze is a good football coach. I don't know who all's on the staff, but his defensive coordinator is a really good football coach. And they've done a good job in the portal. He may have made a mistake not grabbing a quarterback and feeling like he had one, but I think it was an evaluation. If you did it over again, you might come to the same conclusion. But for some reason, they have not been able to quit beating themselves. And it's just, to me, it's a head scratcher.
All right, I want to move ahead to the games this week. We'll go ahead and I'll just run down last week. Everybody knows what happened. Georgia didn't play great but beat Florida. Tennessee didn't play great but beat Kentucky. Ole Miss lit up Arkansas. We're going to obviously get to them in a moment. 515 yards passing for Jackson Dart. Oklahoma got a win over Maine, and Mississippi State got a badly needed win over UMass. All right, let's get to this weekend, and let's start with Alabama and LSU. Clearly, huge game on Saturday night in Baton Rouge. You've been down there many times at night as an Alabama coach. Alabama has had, to say they've had success down there would be an understatement. And we know it's a tough place to play. We know what the environment is, but Alabama's 29-10 all time. I think either 2 or 3 ties. They've won 2 out of every 3 they've played down there. So the history is on Alabama's side. Having said that, this is Kalen DeBoer's first trip as the head coach at Alabama. He's 0-2 on the road in the SEC this season. Alabama and LSU are basically playing for this is a playoff elimination game, I think. I think the loser is out. The winner is still in pretty good shape. So there's a lot on the line Saturday night. Could be some rain as well. How do you see this game?
Yeah, both of them coming off open dates. I think they ought to be healed up and as fresh as they could possibly be at this point in the season. I give Alabama a little bit of the edge, but I think a lot of it depends on the defenses. And LSU's defense has steadily improved during the course of the year. Alabama's been a little bit hot and cold, but they've been more destructive and more dynamic on that side of the ball. And I just feel like they've got an advantage going in other than that home field. So I think it'd be a heck of a ball game, but I feel Alabama's, if they play well, will probably win this game.
Is it too simplistic just to say whichever quarterback, because this is often the case, but in this game in particular, that whichever quarterback plays the best, that team offensively is going to be successful and probably win the game?
Well, I think that's very true, but I think you look at it and say, why? And not only does the quarterback have to play well and not make mistakes, but the other team has got to force some of those. And that's where I think Alabama's got an advantage. We've created more turnovers during the course of the year and been more destructive on defense at times. Not going to say they've been more consistent than LSU, but I think they've been more effective on defense than LSU has. So, I mean, Nussmeier's a tough kid. He's been in some pressure games, but I think Alabama's got an edge with their defense being able to force more errors on the LSU offense than the other way around.
Yeah, and we look at the second half of the LSU A&M game because we look at Nussmeier, and you know what? He's a very accurate thrower. If you give him time back there with those wide receivers, Lacey and Anderson and those other guys, he can survey the field. He can pick you apart with surgical precision. But pressure, as you know, as a defensive coordinator, bursts pipes, and it also affects quarterbacks. And A&M got to him in that second half. He forced some balls uncharacteristically, had 3 interceptions. For Alabama, and I know you'd like to be able to get pressure with your front without having to blitz, but isn't it critical that you do affect him and not let him get into the kind of rhythm that he's capable of rattling off 8, 10, 11, 12 completions in a row against you if you let him get comfortable?
Absolutely. I mean, if they allowed that, it's going to be a tough deal for them because their running game is certainly solid too. And if he's able to throw and have a good day and they don't make him uncomfortable in that pocket and it starts getting to be a balanced game, that's going to be a disadvantage to Alabama.
Do you agree with me that because Alabama's 11 right now in the first playoff rankings, LSU's 14, the winner of this game, if they can run the table and win the rest of them, it looks good to get in the playoff. The loser, I mean, as much as we want to see the SEC do well, and I think they could get 4 teams in, 3 losses, you're probably out, Coach. Would you agree with that?
At this point, no question. I don't see other conferences having those problems, and there are going to be a couple of 3 from the Big Ten. I think the ACC is going to maybe get 2, and then the Big 12 may get, I know they'll get 1, of course, but they may even get a second one, depending on how their season runs. I think 3 losses is going to be hard. Now, you got Georgia, Ole Miss, not to jump all over the place, but you got a bunch of games left in these last 2 or 3 weeks where this same scenario is going to be a factor. And when you get that 3rd loss, unless 3 or 4 of them have that 3rd loss, I think you're going to be looking on the outside.
All right, let's get to Georgia and Ole Miss. 2:30 Saturday in Oxford. Rebels, were dominant at Arkansas, scoring 63 points. Dart, as I mentioned, 515 yards passing. Georgia didn't play great, but, they're Georgia, and they find a way to win. Ole Miss is still kicking themselves over losing to Kentucky at home, but they could, kind of cancel that out with a win over Georgia. This is for Ole Miss, this is a chance to do what Kiffin has had a hard time doing, and that is getting over the hump against a Georgia, against an Alabama. They've won a lot of games since he's been at Ole Miss, but this is the type of game that they've failed consistently in.
This one's hard to pull, but I tell you, if they played last Saturday, Ole Miss would beat them. Georgia is starting to slip just a little bit. There's too much pressure on Carson Beck. The running game's not as strong as it had been. It's just too much for him to carry right now, and they're not that explosive on offense. Nothing like the 2 or 3 teams they've had previous to this. But Georgia's been there so many times, and a bunch of these guys on this team were a part of it, and they understand games like this, and they seem to come through, in the clutch. So it's hard to bet against Georgia, even if they're on the road. And right now, Ole Miss is about as hot as you can get. And don't forget about their defense. They're up in the top 2 or 3 in the nation in defense. So I really think Ole Miss might pull this one off at home. And if they do, it's going to really put a kink in those playoffs because they had them up there. They had Georgia. I think they had them to win the conference. And I tell you, this is going to be a tough one for them to get over. And then they got to come back next week and play Tennessee.
Yeah. Georgia's had a tough schedule. Florida goes to Texas, and we've talked a lot about the Gators this year with Billy, and I hate to say this because I know you as a coach you're going to just laugh, but sometimes it just appears that teams are snake bitten to me. I mean, you lose Mertz, and then early in the Georgia game when you're playing really well, your defense has been playing well. You lose Lagway, you're down to a 3rd-team quarterback, and you still battle in that game. It just seems like it's been Murphy's Law for Billy Napier in Florida this year. And I still watching them Saturday, I mean, they look like a pretty good football team, but they just can't seem to catch a break, and now they go to Texas.
Yeah, they've been improving the last 3 or 4 weeks, and I think part of it has been the quarterback play. But, you use that little term snake bit. If they were turning the ball over or giving up 50-yard bombs every other series, that's not snake bit. That's poor play. But what you're talking about, it is unfortunate, and it's bad luck. It really is. Losing 2 quarterbacks in 3 weeks, I don't know many teams can overcome that. At least this time, though, the young kid to walk on from Yale, he'll have a chance to practice, and kind of be a little bit more ready to handle this thing. But it's a bad week when you got to do it against what I still think is the best team in the conference in Texas and do it on the road. So they've got a huge challenge. I don't see any way they can beat Texas down there.
A team that's kind of fallen off the map pretty quickly, as can happen in this league, is Missouri. They had a lot of momentum early and a lot of talk about the playoff, and now they, they're at home against Oklahoma. This is a rivalry game going back to the old Big 8 days with these two teams. Oklahoma's had a tough year, already basically changed out their offensive staff in the middle of the season. For Mizzou, this is a home game. Mizzou's still got a chance to have a really good year. How important is it for Missouri that the wheels have seemed to come off a little bit to kind of right the ship and get a win at home over the Sooners?
Well, I think it boils down to whether they get healthy Brady Cook, because with him, they're still a really good football team. Their defense has tailed off just a little bit, but they've been having to play under a lot of pressure because their offense can't produce like they were early in the year. But I think, you got Burden, you got a couple other weapons. If Brady Cook's healthy and they can protect him a little bit against a good Oklahoma defense, then I think they can win at home. But if he's not healthy or if he's not mobile or anything else that keeps him from playing at that level, Oklahoma's defense is good enough to go in there and get a win.
Tennessee gutted it out against Kentucky. Obviously, as you said, they got a showdown against Georgia next week. And Mississippi State comes to Knoxville. Now, on paper, you look at Tennessee and you just say there's no way they could lose this game. But with Georgia looming, it is an SEC game. You see any shot here from Mississippi State to get this game into a fourth quarter against the Tennessee team that offensively, lately, they haven't been very explosive. They're not scoring a ton of points.
No, they're not a typical Heupel-looking team. But what he's done a real good job of, I think when he realized that the young kid's not really playing up to the level they hoped he could at this point, they running the football. And their defense is still very legitimate. Mississippi State's improved. Their defense is a little bit better. Their offense has been getting a lot better. But I think Tennessee's defense against Mississippi State's offense, I'll take Tennessee every time. And I think they'll run the football on Mississippi State. So I just don't see a way that Mississippi State can win up there unless Tennessee gives it away.
All right, Coach, before we close out the segment, first playoff rankings came out on Tuesday night. I think the SEC looks strong for 4 teams. I want to ask you about a scenario, though, that because there's so much, excitement about having 16 teams. You don't have divisions. Money is a big part of this, but you've got an SEC championship game looming. Obviously, the winner is going to be in good shape. They're going to get an automatic berth. They're going to get a bye in that first round. But what if the team that goes over there is a 2-loss team that loses? Could that impact them getting into the playoffs? Suddenly they have a 3-loss team, even though they're having to play the extra game. And even if they don't get left out of the playoff, you play that game, then you got to turn around and play a first-round game. I don't think anybody really cares because, again, the SEC championship game is such a big moneymaker, but that could be a real detriment for the team that doesn't win that game.
Yeah, it's kind of been in the back of my mind a long time, ever since this came up. Are these conference playoff games going to be smart to be having that close to the 12-team playoff deal? And you can see a scenario where it can be harmful. It's kind of like these college baseball teams. They go to these tournaments, the SEC tournament there in Birmingham, and it's almost a curse to go over there and play 4 or 5 games into the rounds. You get out early, you rest your pitchers, and you go to College World Series with a lot better situation than the other team. So I don't know. It's a little bit of an analogy there. Personally, just the main thing I see is that it's way too early to figure out if these brackets look halfway predictable.
Mm-hmm.
There's too many teams that are going to play, in the next 2-3 weeks. But you're exactly right. You could have an SEC playoff game, and the two teams that come in obviously were considered the two best teams in that conference. But if one of them gets beat, and especially if embarrassingly, and there's another one sitting there that maybe got left home on a tiebreaker or whatever, and they don't have room for enough teams, I don't know. It could hurt one of them. It really could hurt their chances. You could also have a nagging injury or something else happen. That's football, though. That's just part of the game. That could happen in the playoffs. But it's one thing I don't like about the playoffs. I think it's going to start taking away from these conference championship games.
As good as this league is, with 16 teams, no divisions, 8 conference games, does it feel a little disjointed to you, though, at some point? You got, obviously everybody can't play everybody, but does the league seem a little bit just not, obviously the geography is different with Texas and Oklahoma coming in. Does it feel a little disjointed to you at all, the SEC now?
I don't know what the right word is, Gary. It almost to me feels overwhelming.
Yeah.
In other words, there's so many good teams in that league. To go through that conference without somebody getting hurt or having a loss that you shouldn't have, you wouldn't have, if you played them 10 more times. I mean, the chances to get beat by somebody who's not as good as you, which maybe you could say South Carolina, Texas A&M. A&M had the easiest track, and they go down to Columbia with a 3-loss team and get beat badly. And I think that's going to happen more and more and more. Some of it's also the portal. You don't have as many teams that have 2 and 3 quarterbacks and 8 defensive linemen they can rotate without dropping off. You're seeing teams lose 2 or 3 kids for 2 weeks, and they're not the same team because the quality of depth is not there. But I think it's I don't know. I never liked that idea in the first place, all these mega conferences. I like the geographical footprints and the rivalries and that type of thing. But, I'm kind of a traditionalist, and that bus left the station a long time ago.
Yep.
But I think there are some, I tell you what it helps recruiting.
Yeah.
I mean, teams like South Carolina and those teams that are not in the top half, they can still recruit as good as anybody in the nation, get in the top 20 in recruiting. But you look up, you got 12 teams in the conference that have better classes than you do. But it's a murderer's road trying to get through this thing now.
Yeah, it's crazy. Great analysis as always, Coach. Appreciate it.
Enjoyed it, Gary.
Thank you.
Chiropractic, the only third-generation chiropractor with over 27 years experience in Tuscaloosa. Call Tidwell Chiropractic at 752-7503.
If you haven't already, you've got to try Tuscaloosa's unique breakfast, brunch, and lunch concept. Brick and Spoon, downtown Tuscaloosa, Timerson Square. It's fresh food with a Cajun flair featuring a full bar with build-your-own Bloody Marys and mimosas. Open daily, 7 a.m. until 2 p.m. Available for after-hour.
Call 800-8000 or visit mezwins.com. I've got this.
No representations made that the quality of legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of legal services performed by other lawyers.
Los Tarascos has been serving Mexican favorites like burritos, fajitas, and quesadillas since 1999. Their new location is at 4100 Owen Parkway in Northport. And, of course, you can find Los Tarascos in Tuscaloosa at 110 Skyland Boulevard. The bar areas feature big screen television so you can enjoy your favorite sporting events. Los Tarascos features daily happy hour.
In Northport, just before Carroll's Creek Baptist Church. Sponsored by Edmondson Deer Processing, Tuscaloosa Tractor, Irvin's, Paul's Feed and Seed, and Anders Hardware.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
The weather unseasonably warm today. A mix of sun and clouds. The chance of a few scattered showers through tonight. The high today 81. Tonight's low 65. Tomorrow, partially sunny. Again, the chance of scattered showers. The high at 79. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 76 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Covering University of Alabama sports, as well as the national and local scene as well. The Gary Harris Show, only on Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
4:57. That's going to wrap it up for hour number 1 of the Gary Harris Show, brought to you by Alabama Credit Union, member-owned and not-for-profit. It's just a better way banking. The second hour is on the way. We'll kick it off with D. Orlando Ledbetter with the Falcons Report, plus Jeff Spiegel. Your phone calls and more. And in fact, we'd like to get some phone calls going here in the second hour. Been a little bit slow today. Gary Harris Show, though, has another hour coming up right here on Tide 100.9 FM and 1230 AM WTBC, your home for Alabama sports.
WTBC Tuscaloosa and W265CG Tuscaloosa, a Town Square media station. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
From the Fox Sports Studios in Los Angeles, here's Kevin Wyatt.
Some NFL news this morning as the Carolina Panthers extending running back Chuba Hubbard. They're giving him a 4-year contract worth $33.2 million. It carries a max value of $37.2 million, and $15 million of it is fully guaranteed. In the NBA last night, the Suns have made it 6 wins in a row after they beat the Heat 115-112 behind 32 points from Kevin Durant. Phoenix now 5-0 on their home floor. Clippers over the 76ers 110-98 as Paul George in his first game against his old team, 18 points in 24 minutes on the court. Try
ZipRecruiter for free today at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Serving part-time in the Army National Guard has led to a lot of firsts for me. It paid for me to be the first person in my family to go to school. That education got me to the first day at my dream job, which I can still hold while I serve part-time. That job and the home loan benefits I got from the Army National Guard helped me buy my first house. I also know that I will be one of the first to respond if my community ever needs me.
Sponsored by the Alabama Army National Guard. Aired by the Alabama Broadcasters Association and this station.
Are you receiving unemployment? Your benefits could be at risk. Here's how you can protect yourself and your benefits. Never respond to mail notifying you of a false claim in your name. Never answer a text message asking you to verify your account. And only respond to official Alabama Department of Labor's social media pages. Report fraud at labor.alabama.gov/fraud. Brought to you by the Alabama Department of Labor, ABA, and the station. The Alabama Department of Labor is an equal opportunity employer program. Auxiliary aids and services available upon request to individuals with disabilities. Dial 711 for TTY accessibility.
The Gary Harris Show. UCM host Tider Insider TV, Crimson Tide Kickoff, play-by-play for Alabama sports, and sports director for WVUA 23. It's time for the Gary Harris Show on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Hour number 2 of the Gary Harris Show for this Thursday, November 7th, 2024 is on the air. Gary Harris, Chase Brumfeld, and we're joined as always on Thursdays by D. Orlando Ledbetter, Falcons beat writer for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, AJC.com, and brings us the Falcons report. And things are going well in the ATL. Good morning, Orlando.
Hey, good morning, Gary. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, pleasure. And man, I tell you what, the Falcons are in pretty good shape. This is a very poor division, and the other teams have also, it seemed like, had terrible injury luck as well. And Atlanta's sitting at 6-3. They've already swept the Bucs, and now on Sunday you got a chance to go sweep the Saints, a Saints team that fired their head coach Dennis Allen. Just a mess right now. So you got to feel pretty good if you're an Atlanta Falcons fan.
Yeah, no question about it. They, big win coming over Dallas. Got to play the Saints. Then you got Denver. Then you go into your bye week. So if you handle your business, you're sitting at 8-3, 11 games in, and you can start legitimately talking about the playoffs.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Of course, this is a rivalry game, and Falcons. One of the major reasons the Saints are in the shape that they're in was they let one get away against Atlanta earlier this season when the Saints were still a pretty strong team. I know you cannot ever take anything for granted when you go down to the Superdome, can you?
Oh, no doubt. So many strange things have happened there. I talked to Bobby Hebert the other day, and he's like, it doesn't matter if the Falcons are good and the Saints are bad, or the Falcons are bad and the Saints are good. You always just figure they're going to split the season series because it's a rivalry game. Certainly the Dome down there, I know they're a little down because the team's lost 7 straight, but they'll get fired up for this one. They'll have the Dome rocking, and the Falcons, they'll try to jump on the Falcons and knock them off their high horse for sure.
Were you surprised that the Saints went ahead and pulled the trigger on Dennis Allen?
I was not. I didn't. I knew they were going to fall off. We had talked about them being old, but I didn't think it was going to be this early in the season. Especially after that hot start. I thought, they might could get to 7-7 and 7-9, 8-9, something like that. And then maybe they can keep going. But to lose the 7 straight, and the way they did it, kind of made it hard for them to keep him around.
Looking around the division, the Bucs, like a number of teams this year, had a chance to beat the Chiefs. Really kind of controversial play call by Todd Bowles there. Tampa Bay fights back, scores a touchdown late, doesn't go for 2. They get to overtime, they lose the toss, and basically game over. What did you think about the decision for Bowles on the road? The longer the game goes, the more I think it favors the Chiefs to not take a shot to try to win it right there. Did you agree with his decision to kick the point?
No, I didn't. I think on the road you play to win, and that's the old rule: is on the road play to win, on home go to overtime. He went against that, and it came back to bite him. He's a defensive coach, so he's thinking, hey, I can get a stop out here, but they weren't able to do that. So, I understand his thinking, but I thought he went against the old axiom of try to win on the road and play for the tie at home.
And the other team in the division, the Panthers, back and forth with the quarterbacks. But Bryce Young, the last couple of weeks, after getting a chance to go back in due to a hand injury to Andy Dalton, he played pretty well against the Broncos, even though they lost, and then led them to a win over the Saints. And I guess that was the straw that broke the camel's back with Dennis Allen. And threw an interception in that game. It was a pass. He hit the guy right in the numbers. What do you think of Bryce Young? And is he their quarterback now for the rest of the season?
Bryce is going to get a extended shot here. He's got to be their guy. They took him over number 1, gave up a lot, and Canales has got to figure out how to play to his strength. And, they've done that a little bit better here the last 2 games. We'll get to see him against the Giants in Germany this weekend. So that's a good matchup. That's a team that's not, too formidable. So he'll get a chance to complete some passes and move the football against the Giants and maybe further develop under Coach Canales, who's supposed to be the great quarterback whisperer. Let's see some of your work here.
I agree with you.
Let's see what you can do with them. Yeah, I'm going to put some of this on the coach and see what he can do in developing Bryce here over the rest of the season.
Absolutely, Orlando. I'm with you. All right, back to the Falcons, and I know, like you said, you don't take anything for granted, but we've kind of laid it out here. Already swept the Bucs. If they sweep the Saints on Sunday, they've already got 1 win over the Panthers. As weak as this division is, with Tampa Bay hit with the injury bug, Saints hit with the injury bug, Carolina obviously just trying to, get a little traction for the future. If the Falcons just play decent, I just don't see how they could lose this division, Orlando.
Yeah, Gary, we were kind of sitting there last year saying the same thing, going, they should beat Tennessee.
True.
The Minnesota team's not too good, and hey, Arizona, that's a walkthrough, and then they lost all those. So, we're doing the same thing this year. Looks like they got a pretty good path to the playoffs. But, maybe this is a much better team than last year. You got a quarterback that's competent and could definitely put points on the board. So, in that regard, you got something working here. And so now it's a matter of going out there and handling the business, handling the Saints that will come out and play inspired football for Coach Rizzi, and not want to get kicked in the head by their rivals. Just the odds of losing 8 in a row in the NFL, that's pretty hard to do. And so we just got to see how they handle this being a front runner deal. They haven't been there in a while.
No, they haven't, and we'll see how they handle it. D. Orlando Ledbetter with us talking Falcons, and Kirk Cousins, again, you called this in the offseason. You said he was exactly what Atlanta needed. I questioned it, but so far he has been. And now the more you watch this team, you saw it against the Cowboys, this is kind of becoming his team. He's a veteran guy, and it just feels like that the team has responded to him, and it's his football team is kind of the vibe I get watching them. You cover them and watch every play. Is that kind of the feeling you get?
Yeah, I mean, you got the young guys, and he came in and kind of huddled them up and said, hey, if we do this, if we keep working this way, we can, maybe do some special things together. And so they were all ears. I'm talking about Drake London, Bijan, maybe not all ears from Kyle Pitts, but he's coming around. Ray McLeod's been a pleasant surprise. And then they had some veterans sprinkled in like Darnell Mooney and Charlie Warner. And so, yeah, he certainly got some listeners. They bought into what he's selling, and it's working out pretty good for him on the offensive side of the ball. And Jesse Bates is doing the same thing on the defensive side of the ball as they're trying to get better over there.
Yeah, speaking of the defense, how did you think they played against the Cowboys, particularly up front?
Yeah, they finally got some sacks. They had 3 sacks and 6 hits. They mixed the rotation up. They, decreased Matt Judon snaps. He went down to 40 snaps, went down to 52%. And they brought in Damone Harris and D'Angelo Malone to keep those ends fresh so they could try to finish. Arnold Ebiketie led the way. He had a sack and 3 hits, and Caden Ellis had his first sack and 3 hits in that game. So that was good for them to finally get home to the quarterback. Now they're hoping they can build on that presentation against the Cowboys.
And while we were mentioning the Cowboys, Dak's out. Jerry Jones has continued to be unbelievably optimistic, but this just does not appear to be a good football team. Do you see any hope for the Cowboys for this season?
I do not. They seem somewhat disinterested. They play just hard enough to make you think they're in the fight. They only got CeeDee Lamb on offense. Rico Dowdle's not scaring anybody. And so, the tight end, Jake Ferguson, they probably need to use him a little bit more. But now you got Cooper Rush in there as the backup, and then, we're probably going to see Trey Lance before the season's over with. This is not a very good football team. They missed their window. 3 years of going 12-5 and then choking in the playoffs is, they're going to kick themselves for that team of not last year, but the one 2 seasons ago that got to the divisional round, won 1 playoff game. But, they're going to have to do some major retooling in Dallas. I know he said he was all in, but everybody's been questioning that since the statement by Jerry Jones.
And what do you make of the Chiefs? I mean, clearly they're the Chiefs. They're unbeaten, but the way they're winning, they're not overwhelming teams. I mean, they've had some injuries themselves, but defensively they've been really good. Offensively, they've kind of changed the way they play. They're more of it seems to be more of a physicality and just wearing you down. And but they've won them all. It's just kind of interesting to watch them because it doesn't look like the explosive Chiefs we've seen in the past, and the offense is not the same. But overall, they're just getting the job done.
Yeah, I just like watching Chris Jones when they're on TV.
Yeah, he's such a force.
Just watch him try to block him. Man, he just wrecked the whole offense, at some point during the game. And Coach Spags knows how to play off of that. So I can't name another. Well, I know Brian Cook. He's a safety from Cincinnati and Howard. But other than that, I couldn't name any other Chiefs on the defensive side of the ball, and I'm sure some good ones over there. But offensively, it just amazes me that, Kelsey's not. They don't put two people on him, and he's wide open in zone, and they just stop, and the ball's right there. 14 times, that's too many. And that just kind of keeps it going to where you can't overload on the run game. Then they bring in Kareem Hunt. They're working in D-Hop last week. I think he had eight catches. And this is his first. He's been there for 5 days. So, good coaching is going to overcome some of the talent issues, and we're seeing that with the Chiefs.
All right, Orlando, awesome update as always on the Falcons, and really I use you to go around the NFL too. If people want to, subscribe to your beat reporting with the AJC.com or follow you on social media, how do they do it?
Yeah, you can go to AJC.com, our website, and then, we tweet everything out on Twitter on Orlando AJC, and our Falcons Facebook page is Atlanta Falcons News Now.
Thanks, Orlando.
Thank you, Gary. Have a great weekend.
All right. It is 10:16 here on the Gary Harris Show. We're open for phone calls in the next segment, and I see Jeff's been holding. Jeff, appreciate your patience. We're going to get to you on the other side. 205-342-9904. 205-342-9904 is the number on the Pinnacle Park at North River Hotline. Hey, this weather that Again, I hate to complain when it's so nice, but it's weird. I'm just going to say that. When you wake up in November the 7th and it's 75 degrees outside when you go outside to go to work, it's peculiar, but it certainly has been good for golf. And Tall Pines Golf Course is in great shape. I was out there this past weekend playing a few holes and absolutely enjoy the tranquility of the course. It's in good shape, as I said. They put those greens in last year. Most of them, there's still a couple that they're having a couple issues with, but for overall, they're in really good shape. Open for public play. Call to make a tee time, 205-556-1232, 205-556-1232. Also have a driving range and putting greens. You can also look into a membership if you would like.
This is in my office.
Count on ZipRecruiter to find the right candidates for it. Try ZipRecruiter for free today at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
The weather unseasonably warm today. A mix of sun and clouds. The chance of a few scattered showers through tonight. The high today 81. Tonight's low 65. Tomorrow, partially sunny. Again, the chance of scattered showers. The high at 79. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 76 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Alabama fans are all over the world, and we are too. Download the Tide 100.9 app right now in the App Store and Google Play, and take the Crimson Tide everywhere you go.
Here on the Gary Harris Show. Jeff Spiegel coming up at the bottom of the hour right now. Jeff has been patiently waiting throughout the D. Orlando Ledbetter interview to visit with us here on the hotline. Good morning, Jeff. Jeff, did you stay with us?
Yeah, I'm right here.
Hey, man. Good morning.
What's going on? I just want to say it's kind of ironic that they're going to honor Sonny Smith on the game when they played Richmond. That was a team we lost to an NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Sonny. I should have already mentioned that. I know Wimpenberry talked about him retiring as the color analyst for Auburn basketball on the radio. Of course, former coach there, as you alluded to. And the one thing about Sonny Smith is just a wonderful human being, Jeff. You know what I mean? And
well, I remember watching. Me and my father, we went to the tournament in '84. It was in Nashville when we watched we didn't watch all. We watched the finals that day, and they were playing Auburn in the championship game, and that was when Kentucky had the Twin Towers. They had Bowie and Turpin, and they called it Bell, but Dinner Bell, but Bowie and Turpin and Kenny Walker. That 6'8", 6'9", they got it into him at the end of the ball game, and it hung on the rim for about, it seemed like 5 minutes and fell in. And I'll never forget it because as soon as that ball went in, Kentucky won the ball game. Charles Barkley laid on the floor and cried like a baby.
Yeah,
he knew he could win a SEC championship. He cried like a little baby. And then of course they went to the tournament. I guess they got that large, but they lost the first round to Richmond. The first time they ever been turned.
Yeah, Richmond Spiders. You're right.
Yeah, Richmond Spiders, but it's kind of ironic they're going to honor that night when they're playing Richmond. It's kind of ironic.
Yeah.
40 years later, they're going to honor him that night. But I know a guy, Greg Turner, played there with a person in them.
Yeah.
And back in the day.
I remember Greg Turner was a 6'7" forward, was a good player. I think he wore number 11. Yeah.
Yes, forward. He played with Parson.
Yeah, good Auburn teams.
They had some pretty good teams back. I know they won the tournament a couple times, or once I know, and went to he went to a few NCAA tournaments. Didn't do a whole lot, but I know they had a few great writers. I'll never forget Barkley on the floor just crying and bawling like a little baby. But he said later the reason why he was disappointed is because he knew that was going to be his last.
Yeah,
game.
He wasn't coming back, and
college uniform. You know, he was going to go on to the NBA and stuff and play and everything. But all that stuff. But yeah, it's kind of ironic they're going to honor him because I know I've been in that new, but it's kind of a newer arena. It's not really, it's older, but I was in it the first few years. It was built. It was really nice. I know it's smaller than the one they had before, but it was real nice. The basketball arena they got now, I know they fill it up pretty regular now that Pearl's there, but and everything. But it's just kind of ironic they're going to honor him. But I don't know what Sonny thinks about that. He probably don't want to see Richmond, I would think. But,
well, I think that it's the acknowledgement of what he has done for Auburn. No, I'm with you. But one thing on Barkley,
I appreciate that. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. One thing on Barkley, Jeff talked about losing to Richmond in the NCAA tournament, and I know that really is something he regrets that he couldn't win an NCAA tournament game with Auburn. I know the other thing was that he didn't make that 84 Olympic team. And he should have made it. Bob Knight didn't pick him for whatever reason, but I know Barkley really wanted to make that team. But Barkley was, he could be difficult, and he and Knight clashed, and it wasn't a talent issue, that's for sure. All right, 1024 here on the Gary Harris Show. We got time to get in some more phone calls if you want to give us a ring. A little quiet today. I know we'll pick it up tomorrow when we're at Innisfree Irish Pub. We'll have our Bama football trivia giveaway and SEC point spread predictions and a lot of stuff going on over there at Innisfree, but we got time to get a call in right now. All right, can't get too far away from Alabama football. We've broken it down pretty nicely with the coach, Ellis Johnson. I've given you some thoughts on it, but I mentioned that for Kalen DeBoer, this is such a big game, and he's 0-2 on the road in the SEC, and you need to win a road game. You need to go ahead and get that monkey off your back, so to speak, and no better time than the present. But the reality of the situation at Alabama is that this is the most historic-laden program in the history of the Southeastern Conference. It is Dixie's football pride, the Crimson Tide, just like in Alabama. It put Southern football on the map in the Rose Bowl over 100 years ago. It continues to be even with Georgia's dominance of late, Alabama is the program. As I said, it's a brand. It's the Yankees, the Lakers, the Cowboys. And honestly, if Alabama loses this game, there is going to be it's going to be like taking a pin and popping a balloon. Air's just going to go out of this town. It is. I hate to be that blunt about it, but there's not going to be a lot of excitement for Alabama football the rest of the season. Now, there will be the Iron Bowl. Now, Alabama fans obviously will want to win that. Trip to Oklahoma. You'll play out the season. You'll go to a bowl. But the reality will hit this town like a ton of bricks. If Alabama loses Saturday night, you're not going to the playoff. And it's going to be a vibe that you're just not used to having around here. And in Kalen DeBoer's first season, it'll be disappointing. Now, I've said for the record, if Alabama finishes 10-2, they're going to go to the playoff. But even if they don't go to the playoff, at 10-2, I think you say that it's been a successful season, right? 9-3, 8-4, no playoff. Not bad at some places, but here I think there'll be a feeling that this season was a disappointment. So Monday morning when we do this show, Chase, my point is this: either we're going to be buzzing, and there's going to be excitement, and there's going to be a feeling that, wow, you got past LSU. Now all you got to do is beat Oklahoma, Louisiana Monroe, or I'm sorry, Mercer. Let me get this right and get it in right order. Mercer, Oklahoma, and Auburn. Auburn plays Louisiana Monroe. And you're going to the playoff. and everybody's going to be positive. You lose this game, and it's going to be a lot of negativity. That's just the reality of being the Yankees, of being the Cowboys, of being the Lakers, Celtics, that type of following, that type of brand. Plus, when you're one of those iconic brands, you have more fans than most schools do, but you also have more haters too. So all of the fans of the other schools are going to come out of the woodwork and have fun at your expense. So Saturday night's a big game. It is a big game. All right, 10:28 here on the Gary Harris Show. We'll take a timeout. And
30958.
Fair pricing is what we do. Taylor Electric, we are here for you.
Serving part-time in the Army National Guard has led to a lot of firsts for me. It paid for me to be the first person in my family to go to school. That education got me to the first day at my dream job, which I can still hold while I serve part-time. That job and the home loan benefits I got from the Army National Guard helped me buy my first house.
We've made the process fast, easy, and affordable. Visit RexMD.com right now to get started. That's REXMD.com.
You see him on WVUA 23 covering sports and on Tider Insider TV on Tuesday nights. Don't miss a minute of the Gary Harris Show. Weekdays from 9 to 11 on Tide 100.9.
Show. Welcome back in, and it's Spiegs time. Jeff Spiegel, ABC 3340 sports anchor, host of The Zone, host of the EOG Rap, high school football. He's got it all covered for you, and every Thursday he's with us here on the Gary Harris Show. Good morning, Jeff.
Good morning, Gary. How are you?
Well, doing well. I keep saying I feel bad complaining about this weather, but it was still weird to me to wake up this morning and walk out the door and it's 75 degrees at 8 o'clock in the morning, dude. I just
crazy.
This is peculiar, right? I mean, it's November.
It really is. Yeah. I mean, I went out for a walk this morning, had the sweatshirt on, and I said, I'm going to burn up in this thing.
Oh, absolutely.
So yeah, it's just I mean, it feels nice, but you never know how long it's going to last.
Well, so far we've had very little fall, but it is fall and it's November. The calendar says so, and that means it's nitty gritty time for football. And you're either at this point in the season, hopeful that you can have a special season or it's over. I mean, there's not a lot of middle ground right now. Either you're in good shape or you're not. Alabama at this point still in good shape, despite the fact that they lost on the road in Nashville to Vanderbilt and in Knoxville to Tennessee. You can't do anything about that, but you can do something about going forward. And if they win these next four, I'm confident they're 11 in the first playoff rankings. I think if they finish 10-2, they're going to get in the playoff. But you can't get to 10 wins if you don't win on Saturday night. This is an elimination game with Alabama and LSU. Alabama, I don't have to tell you, 29-10-2 all time in Baton Rouge. They've won 2 out of every 3 they've ever played there, but they didn't win 2 years ago. And if they don't win on Saturday night, you know how it's going to be around here next week. It's going to be rough. How do you see this game? And what are the keys, in your opinion, for Alabama to be able to go down there to LSU on Saturday night, Tiger Stadium, and get a win?
Well, what's going to make it difficult for Alabama is what Texas A&M did to LSU and how well Marcel Reed, ran against the Tigers. And it was like they had never seen Marcel Reed on film before. And he just ran all over them. So in the last couple of weeks, I'm sure that LSU defense has been buttoning up and knowing that, that they've got a guy who can run the football just as well, if not better, than Marcel Reed and Jalen Milroe. And Milroe's got a couple of weeks where he's rested, he's re-energized. And you know the narrative, Gary, you've heard it. What's wrong with Jalen Milroe? He hasn't been the same since the Georgia game, it would appear. Is he banged up? What's going on? Hopefully these 2 weeks, have Jalen Milroe in the right frame of mind and also in the right shape physically to go in there, because they're going to need him. They're going to need him to play incredibly well. That's a no-brainer saying that your quarterback has to play well in a big game like this. But But Jalen Milroe can do so many things. And we all know he can run. He hasn't been that accurate throwing the football lately. So he needs to be on point there, and he needs to be able to, make some plays with his legs. And Alabama needs the first half against Georgia, Jalen Milroe, or it's going to be difficult for them to win, I think.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that's a very good analysis of what they need to do. So, and on the other side, you need good Milroe, and you need defensively to not let Nussmeier get into a rhythm, because if you give him time with those receivers and he can survey the field, Jeff, you've seen it, he can complete 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, 11, 12 passes in a row. He can really pick you apart. How important is it that Alabama pressure him, whether they have to, love to do it just through your front, but whether you have to send blitzes or whatever you do to get him uncomfortable back there and keep him from getting into one of those rhythms where he can light you up?
Well, Gary, and you know this, I mean, they're pretty low in the league when it comes to sacks.
Mm-hmm.
But as Nick Saban used to say all the time, pressuring the quarterback is more than just getting him on the ground. It's making him uncomfortable. It's getting back there and, hitting him after he throws and just kind of making his life, miserable. But you're right. If you give him time to complete passes, and another thing too, when he completes the passes, these DBs have got to tackle, because that's something in the first half against Texas A&M that LSU just killed the Aggies on.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they made some adjustments, but I think they had like 156 yards and, yards after the catch in that first half. So they got to cover, but if they give up a pass, they got to tackle. The key, of course, is, to take away the run. I mean, we say this every week: run the ball and take away the run. But if you can make LSU one-dimensional, and you can make it like Texas A&M made them, where he's got to throw, and they trust 100% in Nuss rather than 70% Nuss and 30% run game, then you get LSU in trouble. So that's what they have to do.
Yeah, another great point. I mean, LSU struggled with their running game. You sure don't want to let them get it untracked on Saturday night, because then it'll be difficult. You're right. Make them one-dimensional. Make them have to beat you with the pass, and then pressure and harass Nussmeier and see if you can force him into some mistakes the way that A&M did. If Alabama does that, they're going to have a good formula. When you look at Coach DeBoer, Jeff, again, I mean, you knew this was going to be a transition year. At the same time, this is a very talented roster still. And I think what's bugging Alabama fans is the 2 games they lost, not to take anything away from Vanderbilt or Tennessee, but Alabama didn't play well in those games. And, if you play, and it happens, you've seen it happen, you play well, sometimes you just get beat. But penalties, mistakes, self-inflicted wounds, lack of discipline, all those things. Where I'm going with this is, as I said, you can't do anything about that, but you sure can learn from it and prepare. How disappointing will it be if Alabama goes down to Baton Rouge Saturday night and we don't see this cleaned up? We see another, say, 12, 13 penalties for 100 yards. We see guys losing their cool. We see, 2 guys with the same number in on a punt return situation. You see some chaos on the sidelines. I mean, I guess the key now to the drill is to make sure that doesn't repeat and you play clean, because if you play clean and you don't help the other team out, I think Alabama will win this game. How do you feel about that? The fact that they really lost 2 games in which they had a ton of mistakes, didn't play their best football. Can they learn from that and make it a different situation for them on the road Saturday night?
Well, they're one of the most penalized teams in college football. And, so, yeah, I mean, they do have to clean that up. And turnovers, look, as long as we've been watching football, as long as our parents and grandparents have been watching football, I mean, the turnover battle is key. It's crucial. You can't turn the ball over. If they don't turn the ball over twice against Vanderbilt, they probably win, a shooting match, against those guys. And, but on the other hand, they won the turnover battle against Tennessee in the first half and couldn't cash in on 3 turnovers.
That's right.
So it's not just, not turning the ball over. It's when you turn them over, can you take advantage of those turnovers? And I think all of these things are even more critical on the road than they are at home, where there's a hostile environment and you have those external factors and all of that. If they can take care of the ball and, avoid the penalties. Listen, there are going to be some false starts. I mean, they're just going to happen. I mean, when you're playing in a noisy environment like that, I mean, they're going to happen. So I'm not going to get all bent out of shape over those. But, it's the silly non-hustle, penalties that, the late hits and the roughing the passers and the personal fouls that are totally unnecessary when the other team gets in your head and you do something stupid. Those are the things that Alabama's got to avoid. They've got to button up and the organization, of course, is going to be critical, and they just got to be buttoned up when they go in there.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right, if they play a clean game, I think they can beat these guys by double digits.
So who are you picking ultimately?
I'm picking Alabama. I mean, I think I think when the chips are down and the reason they're 29-10-2 against LSU is because they walk into that environment and they think, you know what, bring them on.
Mm-hmm.
Bring on the guys who are just like, cussing me and cussing my mama. I don't care because I'm going to make all these people leave with like 4 or 5 minutes to go in the game or even earlier, and they got to go in there with that swagger. And if they do, and if they play a clean football game, win the turnover battle and all that, cut down on the penalties, I think they can win this game by 10 points because I think LSU got exposed against Texas A&M. I think whatever we thought of them going into that game, they weren't all that after that game. And I think Alabama can go in there, and if they play, good, solid Alabama football, play to the standard, as they say, I think they can win this thing by at least 10.
Jeff Spiegel with us, ABC 3340 Sports Anchor. All right, Auburn gets to the bye at 3-6, just one win in the league. They got a little momentum at Kentucky. A lot of people say, well, they've got some traction now. They'll beat Vanderbilt at home. It didn't happen, and now they got to win out just to be bowl eligible to get to 500. If not, they lose one more game. It's a 4 straight losing season. And that was an interesting game because Vanderbilt, obviously has proven they know how to win now in this league this season, but it wasn't like Vanderbilt went down there and played their best. Offensively, Pavia was banged up. They didn't do a ton, but at the end of the game, when they had that lead, they went on that 9-minute drive to put it away, and Auburn only scored 7 points. I mean, it's just one head scratcher after another for Auburn. And I keep hearing people say, Jeff, well, they're much better than their record indicates. They're just play away here. Oh, maybe they're not. Maybe this is just, they're 3-6. And every time people try to say they're going to get over the hump, they lose again. I mean, what do you make of this very peculiar season from Hugh Freeze and the Auburn Tigers?
Well, every week there's always one of those inexplainables, Like, why is Hugh Freeze calling a timeout with 2 minutes and 1 second left on the clock? Why isn't Jarquez Hunter getting more carries? How can he run 23 times for 278, the week before against Kentucky, and going against the team, and I know it's not the same team, but he ran for 183 and 2 touchdowns against this defense last year.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, all the portal guys came in on offense. I don't know how many portal guys are on defense. But anyway, he got 12 carries, I think, for 50 yards. He only got 2 carries in the first half. And then in the postgame, Freeze is going, well, I don't know if he was banged up, but he looked gassed. How can he be gassed? That's a conditioning thing. I mean, that's a problem. If he only runs it 12 times and he's gassed and he can't go anymore after he ran it 23 times the week before. And then, the offensive issues, other than not giving the ball to Hunter, I mean, there's still some weird things going on between Freeze and Thorne. I don't know if you heard yesterday on the SEC teleconference, they asked him at 3-6, I mean, are you open to the idea of, sitting your vets and maybe changing quarterbacks and playing a young guy for the rest of the year to get him ready for 2025? And he just went out and said, look, I don't think Peyton's played that badly, but, we're not winning. So, that's something we've debated about, and we'll continue to debate about it. And then Peyton Thorne's on the next round. Well, have you heard anything about that? Have they talked anything about that? And he goes, no, I haven't heard anything about that. So, it's weird, man. So I don't know. I listen, they're not going to a bowl game. I mean, if you're going to ask me, can they win out and go 6-6? Absolutely not. I mean, they got to go to Tuscaloosa and play the Iron Bowl. They got to play Texas A&M at home. Jordan-Hare Stadium has lost its teeth. I mean, it's completely done in terms of a big home field advantage. They may lose to ULM. I mean, look, ULM could come in there and beat them. I mean, all bets are off for the rest of the year, especially when, he gets on the teleconference and he talks about like emptying the bench and playing a bunch of young guys and all that stuff. So it's weird. It's just a weird dynamic down there.
It really is. It is absolutely strange, and I am going to be interested to see, how they after the bye, how they finish it out. All right, let's get to the fight in Trenton Dilfers, and you and I, you're my UAB guy, and I was off Saturday with Alabama being on bye, and I was driving, and I turned on David Crane, and I always enjoy listening to David, and as soon as he gave the score, I was in shock. It was 38-0 at the time, and they were in the first half. And I was like, wow, 45-0 at halftime. They go on to beat Tulsa 59-21. I know it's one game, but for one Saturday, UAB was good, getting it through for 404. Is that just a complete outlier? Is Tulsa that bad? I mean, what happened that allowed UAB to win a game 59-21?
Well, I think a lot of pent-up frustration. I think, during the bye week, I think they, I don't know, they got together, and it is hard to explain, how a team that had only scored more than 27 points once, and it happened in the season opener, explodes for 45 in the first half. And they were hitting on all cylinders. And I tell you, you look at the highlights, and it looks like Tulsa is walking, and UAB is running like at 4.2, 4.1 speed. Cam Shanks had 311 all-purpose yards, 3 touchdown catches, a punt return for a score. He had 139 yards in punt return yardage. So, I mean, everything was working. I'll be completely honest with you. I know nothing about UConn. I know they got a pretty good basketball program. I don't know really much about their football program. But look, I mean, confidence can carry you a long way. And it doesn't matter at what point of the year, when you get that confidence. Obviously, they're 2-6, and, there's still, whispers that, Dilfer could get fired at the end of the year. More than likely he will. But it was encouraging to see these guys come together and just put it all together for one Saturday. So, I mean, I'm happy for those guys and what they did that day.
I am too. And a quick refresher course on UConn. Jim Mora Jr. is the coach, and they are 6-3 and already bowl eligible. They got beat pretty badly by Maryland in the opener, but their 2 other losses were 26-21 to Duke, who's not bad, and 23-20 to Wake Forest. So they're pretty good. So that would really be a nice win for UAB if they could get it. Speaking of that situation with Trent Dilfer, I mean, again, we've talked about it. UAB financially is not where some other programs are at. Do you think he's going to keep his job regardless of what happens with the athletic director? Do you think Dilfer will be back next year? Because I'm starting to get a vibe that he's going to survive and at least get one more season. What are you hearing, Jeff?
Well, and Gary, I don't know where that vibe comes from. I don't know if that vibe comes from, the big win on Saturday. I'm just still getting a vibe that, I mean, it's going to go down, because I just don't see, if you look beyond Saturday and you look at the whole body of work, it just hasn't been good. He inherited a good program. It wasn't like Bill Clark left him, with nothing. Mm-hmm. And the program has kind of gone backward, since Bill left and Trent took over. And so if I'm an AD and I'm a president, I mean, that's what I'm looking at. I'm not looking at you hammering Tulsa 59-21 and saying everything's going to be okay. I'm looking at what the whole body of work and what you've done, and it just hasn't been good. So that's why the vibe continues for me that they are going to make a change at the end of the year.
So if Ingram's out and Dilfer's out, Would the first choice for UAB administration to bring back Bill Clark, do you think?
Oh, I mean, gosh, maybe. I mean, I don't. It all depends on what Bill wants to do. I mean, I know I've seen like a story a couple of weeks ago where there were a couple of jobs that have Bill Clark's name on it. So it all depends on Ray Watts and what he's interested in doing, and B, what Bill Clark is interested in doing. Is he a guy who thinks he can go back and recreate that magic at UAB again, which took a lot of work, by the way, because you basically had to rebuild that program twice when you think about it. And or is he in a situation where he goes, you know what, I've done that. Not only have I been there and done that, I've been there and done that twice. So I want to take on something else. So I mean, if I'm Ray Watts, Bill Clark's the first guy I call, but I don't know if Bill Clark's answering that phone.
Very good point. All right, quickly on basketball, it's going to be fun in this state this year with Alabama and Auburn. UAB lost to Vermont, and then Vermont got absolutely destroyed last night by Auburn 94-43. Alabama destroyed UNC Asheville, hung 110 on them on Monday night. So what a year for basketball in this state. It looks like it's going to be from Alabama and Auburn, Jeff.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I mean, I've talked to Alabama and Auburn fans alike, who have been talking about basketball season since football season started, how they've been looking forward to it. Mm-hmm. And Auburn was just great last night. I mean, shot 56%, hit 16 threes, created 16 turnovers, and Janai Broome was like doing everything, stealing the ball, dunking, knocking down threes. I gotta look out for this year. Who's going to be a superstar is Miles Kelly, the grad transfer from Georgia Tech. Mm-hmm. He was 7 of 9 from the floor, all 7 3-pointers, and this guy can shoot lights out. So yeah, I mean, it is going to be fun. I think the media nailed it and the coaches nailed it when they have Alabama and Auburn finishing 1-2. But the thing that blew me away is we had SEC media days in Mountain Brook not too long ago. And there was more talk about Alabama-Auburn than there was about Kentucky, who has a new coach. Mm-hmm. There's a lot to talk about with Kentucky, but I didn't hear any conversation about Kentucky. I mean, it was all about Alabama and Auburn and just how great those two programs are doing.
And, Jeff, real quick, just about a minute, high school playoff start. I'm a little puzzled as to why some of these games got moved up to Thursday night. I mean, the weather forecast really isn't that bad. I mean, this is something we've seen a trend on in high school football recently. It's just like they start moving games really before they know what the weather is going to do. And in some cases, I mean, playing in a little rain is not necessarily outside of football rules, is it? I mean, Hoover's having to wind up playing tonight. What do you make of moving some of these games up to Thursday?
Well, I think in the playoffs, the AHSAA is a little more strict, about that stuff. But earlier in the week, I think schools made a call on the weather. Turns out the weather's not going to be that bad, and so it is kind of puzzling. But I think it's one of those where this is the week it happens, and then from here on out, we're looking at Friday football pretty much all the way, unless there's a conflict, with stadiums. But yeah, it is kind of weird. But, the plus side on that is that, you win that game, you got an extra day to rest and an extra day to prepare. But, yeah, it just seems it was a little weird, but certainly not unexpected. Earlier in the week when I heard a hurricane was coming, I knew there were going to be some games moved to Thursday, especially down in the Mobile area.
And, Jeff, I didn't see this earlier. It's been out a little bit of time. Just your reaction to Florida announcing they're keeping Billy Napier as football coach.
Well, I think their situation is kind of a lot like Auburn, Gary's. I mean, Billy Napier's done a really good job recruiting. And I think you've seen the effort on the football field. The guys are still engaged. Mm-hmm. They're still playing hard for him, even after Lagway went down with that injury. I mean, the guys were just playing their guts out, against Georgia. So he hasn't lost the locker room. That combined with the fact that he's recruiting really well, the key to that, I think.
Yep. All right, Jeff, great stuff as always, man. Be looking for you all weekend. You got a whole lineup of shows, right?
Yeah, I really appreciate it. EOG Wrap on Saturday, The Zone on Sunday.
Doors
It's the Tide Tailgate Show on 95.3 The Bear and Tide 100.9 WTBC 1230. Roll Tide.
Are you receiving unemployment? Your benefits could be at risk. Here's how you can protect yourself and your benefits. Never respond to mail notifying you of a false claim in your name. Never answer a text message asking you to verify your account. And only respond to official Alabama Department of Labor's social media pages. Report fraud at labor.alabama.gov/fraud. Brought to you by the Alabama Department of Labor, ABA, and the station. The Alabama Department of Labor is an equal opportunity employer program. Auxiliary aids and services available upon request to individuals with disabilities. Dial 711 for TTY accessibility.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
The weather unseasonably warm today. A mix of sun and clouds. The chance of a few scattered showers through tonight. The high today 81. Tonight's low 65. Tomorrow, partially sunny. Again, the chance of scattered showers. The high at 79. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 76 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
The best station in the state, breaking down Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
10:57, all out of time. Our thanks to Ellis Johnson, D. Orlando Ledbetter, and Jeff Spiegel for joining us this morning. Tomorrow morning, the TGIF edition of the Gary Harris Show, part of Fridays at the Free, live from Innisfree Irish Pub, beginning at 9 a.m. I know they don't open until 11, but we'll be there. And then T-Town Sports Daily with Wyatt will be there right after our show. Fridays at the Free, looking forward to it. Again, giving away that beautiful print signed by Steve Skipper from the Alabama National Championship win over LSU back at the Superdome following the 2011 season with our Bama Sports football trivia giveaway tomorrow. So you want to make sure and tune in for that. All right, have a great day, everybody. T-Town Sports Daily is coming up next. I'll talk to you tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. from Innisfree Irish Pub.